All right, everybody. It is the summer of the Boston Celtics. Man, we're going to have some fun this summer. We're going to have a lot of creative topics that we're going to get into. But, something got me thinking. There's a lot of impressive statistics floating around about this Boston Celtics team. So let's talk about what's the most impressive statistic that we can find out there. So we're going to throw a couple at you. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a good time. Let's lock in. You know the deal. This is Green with Envy. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only, Greg Manakis. How you doing, my G?
I'm good, man. So we are recording this on a Wednesday, right? So recording this on a Wednesday. My people listening right now, in the future, you'll be listening to this on a Sunday or a Monday. Who knows? Will I have a baby by then? I'm not sure. But
We're on the clock here. We're on
we're on the
call from here on out.
what I do know is that I'm getting LASIK surgery on Friday. Very excited about that. So this might be the last pod with the glasses. RIP to the glasses. This will be a one glasses pod.
Yeah, this is the last time we can double up. I know it was funny. That's one of the only critiques we've ever received from our close friends that have watched the pod. This is one individual person specifically who said, "Don't like when you guys both wear glasses." That was the critique. And so, to that individual, our guy Ted, what's up? You're gonna get your wish. Greg's giving you your wish here. This is the last 2-glass pod. A lot less follicle talk that we'll have on this podcast, I guess.
I mean,
We've
I
done that
can
a
give
couple
a
times.
review. I can give a review of LASIK. Ted, shout out Ted Barry, is actually
He
the
got it first.
reason why I'm getting LASIK, because he told me that it was the best investment he ever made in himself was to get LASIK surgery. I've had glasses since 4th grade, I believe is when I got glasses. I remember going to the movies with my Uncle Dave, and I forget what movie we were seeing. Maybe it was this like silly movie called That Darn Cat. I feel like for some reason
That literally sounds like a made up movie.
look
That
it up.
does not sound
Google
like
it.
I'll look
Google
it
it as
up,
I'm
but
talking. Google it as I'm talking. I think that's a real movie. And I remember him telling me to look up at the sign as we were getting out of the car to find which theater we were going into,
it
and
is it is
I
it is a
couldn't see
legit film.
what
19,
year.
1997. Yeah.
1997. That's roughly around the time I would have
Christina
got my
Ricci and Doug E. Doug are the stars of this movie.
okay. All right. What's the synopsis? Can you read the synopsis?
A maid is kidnapped and scratches a message onto DC, the cat's collar. And when his owner, Patty, discovers this, she plays amateur detective with the help of DC to try to find the culprits. Classic, kid shenanigans where become a, impromptu detective with a cat. That's
I love it.
cat detective movie. That's the way I would
I love that I
categorize it.
actually remembered that was a real movie, and I remember looking up at the sign and having to squint, and I was like, "I can't read it." And then he was like, "Do you need glasses?" And that's when I discovered that I had bad vision. It's gotten progressively worse, and now I'm very excited to get LASIK on Friday and just magically be able to wake up and see.
Yeah, I'm excited for you, man. I think the idea of it sounds great. We talked about this in person the other day. The idea of the lasers freaks me out. Maybe if I get a second individual who's really close to me in my life that does it, maybe it will make me feel a little bit better. I've been told I'm a good candidate for it. So it is something that has been discussed, but have not pulled the trigger. So excited for you to get the gift of vision, which is insane how quickly it works. So I'm excited to see what your review is. So hold tight. But the next time you see Greg, we'll get a review of LASIK. So if you're listening to this will be out probably on a Sunday, maybe sometime next week. You will get a full review of LASIK eye surgery
And
from our guy Greg.
and hey guys, it is officially the off season.
Yes. So you're going to get a lot more of these type of opens where who knows where they're going to go, what we're going to talk about, and especially with this team where Greg, the offseason is going to be interesting. So one of the new wrinkles with the updated CBA is that teams right now. So, like you said, recording this on Wednesday. The season officially ended Monday night when the Celtics raised that trophy, raised the Larry O'Brien trophy. There's already teams re-signing. You can re-sign your own players right now. So likely in the next week, Jayson Tatum's getting that fat bag. So he's going to have a parade. He's there. He's in Miami as we're recording. He's going to be in Boston on Friday. There's a chance by Monday he probably has a fat bag, and that's what we'll be talking about because Pascal Siakam's already re-signed. There's some other movement that you can see happening. So the offseason is most definitely here. But before we get too locked into the offseason, we're still basking right now in the glow of victory. To the victor go the spoils. All the spoils belong to us this offseason. So with that, there has been just an over inundation of amazing statistics about this team coming out. And so I proposed to you, Greg, I wanted to do a what is the most impressive? And I have a couple different categories that we're going to go through today that I'm going to give you options and let you tell me which of these do you think is the most impressive statistic. We've got one for the team perspective. We've got a Jayson Tatum section. We've got a kind of a team-wide miscellaneous type section. And then I got a Brad Stevens section for you. And if you have any that you come up with that you want to add in, we'll fill that in at the end here. But are you ready to play? What's the most impressive?
I'm almost ready to play. One thing I do want to quick give a shout to my band, Black Sheep Optimists, released our song. So as we're recording, it's releasing tonight at midnight.
Yep.
For those listening, it will have released in the past on Thursday, called Feels Like Summer. Make sure that you are streaming it. Make sure that you're sharing it. If you make TikTok videos, make a TikTok video using it, whatever you need to do to help support the band. Got to support the team. Make sure that you go ahead and do that. For the pod listeners, right now, you are going to hear that song in its entirety. And on the other side of that, you will hear us playing What's the Most Impressive.
All right. Well, then let's do it, Greg. Let's play What's the Most Impressive? First up, we've got from a team perspective here, I've got three options for you on this one. Option A, the Celtics overall 80-21 record, second best in franchise history, only behind the 1986 NBA champions. Option B, an average plus 10.7 point differential per game for the Boston Celtics, fifth best in NBA history. And option C, the Celtics held at least a 20-point lead in 50 out of the 101 games that they played this season. Nearly 50% of every game they played this season, the Celtics had at least a 20-point lead in 50%. That's just bananas. But those are your three options. What is the most impressive team statistic from your champion Boston Celtics?
I think initially when you said those three stats, the one that made me like raise my eyebrows the most was the last one. The fact that we had a 20-point lead in over 50 games this season. That's just like mind boggling to think about that. That's even a real statistic.
Right.
So I'm going to go with that. However, I do want to go back to the first one that you brought up, the record of 80-21 being the second best record in franchise history, because when you hear about people that have watched basketball much longer than we have watched basketball, as both of us born in 1989. So we didn't get to see the 80s Celtics, right? I've watched clips of it. Everyone talks about how great those teams were. I wasn't there for it, right? So it's just a little bit different. Everything is more just like anecdotal and going back and watching the tapes from the archives, but it's not the same as being there and actually living it and understanding how great those teams are. But most Celtics fans will say the 86 Celtics is the best team they've ever seen, right? And to think about this team, what is it from 86? That's almost 30 years. Yeah, about 28 years since the 86 team. Like 28 years, is that right? 38 years?
No, that's not right at all. We were born in 89 and we're 34 and 35. So let's just let's go ahead and add on. It's about 38 years is I think what you're trying to get to.
38 years. 38
Did you
years.
said that for a second and I was like, hold on. That can't be right.
I was an English teacher, bro. But yeah, I was one digit off. But 38 years from now, how are people going to talk about this team and how great it was? And obviously, part of that will be future success of this core, right? Do they make
Mhm.
it to another finals, 3 finals in 4 years, or 3 and 5, however long they stay together? Do they win another title? How will that change the historical perspective of this team? But that's the thing that stands out to me, is because obviously the '08 team, historically great team as well, but they weren't great in the playoffs, going to
Mhm.
7 games 2 different times and then 6 games twice as well. So I think with this team, I always thought the '08 team, I know we're going to do a whole pod comparing them in the future. Stay tuned for that later in the summer. But this team, thinking about how great it actually was historically, is a thing that's probably going to linger on my mind most.
First of all 3 of these stats are ridiculous, right? Like the plus 10.7 point differential per game, that's 5th in NBA history. Like that's pretty crazy for a team that, this will already be out by the time you listen to this, but Michael Pina and I discussed a little bit about how it was so confusing how many analysts chose the Mavericks to beat
Right.
the Celtics. And this team had the 5th best point differential in the history of the league, yet they were so widely questioned and treated as suspect. And I get the road to get to the Mavericks, but I know Derek White mentioned this in the post game where he said, I didn't really get people saying we were untested. Like, I'm adding in some of my own verbiage here, but what the fuck were the last 2 years? Like, was that not test? Like all of these guys were on this team. Drew Holiday came from a team that won a championship 3 years ago, so he's in the middle of some of these fights directly with the Celtics. KP was the only guy that you could really say wasn't tested in these type of environments. Other than that, all of these guys were involved in one way or another over these last 3 seasons. And so when you look at these 3 numbers, and there's other numbers that you could have put into this as well, they're all mind blowing. I'm with you. I think the held a 20-point lead in 50 out of 101 games is the most impressive, because I think that the point differential, you can see probably over the next, like you said, you look into the future, the way the 3-point shot is, something else is going to change about this game too. It's going to continue to evolve. And I think, that's going to be difficult to assess between errors. 80 and 21, I think, like to your point, some of that may play a role in what happens that we don't know coming up in the next couple of years with this core. The held a 20-point lead in 50 out of 101 games. Everyone here has been part of everyone, most people listening have played a basketball game. Having a 20-point lead or being behind 20 points, it feels fucking devastating when you're on that side and
Yeah.
you're getting crushed. Like, that is no small feat to be able to hold that much of a gap between your opponents and do that in basically half of your games. That's outstanding. That's incredible. And I just think because that feels like that will translate over time. I think that's going to be a really hard statistic for someone to match, is that I think that stands out to me, because I think no matter what level of basketball you've played, you can relate to just how incredible it is to be up by 20, how difficult that is, and then on the flip side, how devastating it is to be down by 20. And Celtics team just did this over and over again. Yeah, maybe they lost some of those 20-point leads, but they still won 80 of those times. So they still won 80% of their games. So they didn't lose them to the point of they didn't lose the lead to the point of losing very often. So I'm with you. I like that answer. I think holding a 20-point lead in 50 out of 101 games is actually the most impressive team statistic. All right, let's go to category number 2. This is Jayson Tatum specific. What's the most impressive? Option A, most points scored in the NBA playoffs before turning 27. If you've watched any broadcast, you've seen these numbers over and over where he surpassed his idol, Kobe Bryant. Option B, became the 6th player to win a title and lead his team in points, rebounds, and assists, joining LeBron James, who's done it 3 times, Larry Bird, who's done it twice, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, and Nikola Jokic. That's the list. That's it. Option C, he averaged more assists in the finals than Luka Doncic, averaging 7.2 assists versus Luka's 5.6. And obviously, Luka, more known as a facilitator and passer than Jayson Tatum is, not in this series. Those are your 3 options, Greg. What are you going to go with?
I'm going to go with the last one again. Maybe it's just the way my brain
Interesting.
works.
That actually surprises me. I kind of threw that in there. I'm thinking that would not be the winner. So let's hear it.
I think that's the most impressive just because of the way that Tatum's the conversation around Tatum and whether or not he is like a top 5 player, is he an alpha? Can he do all these things on the court? And one of the things that people always bring up about Luka is his otherworldly, preternatural ability to map out the court and just like throw behind the back, behind the head, no look passes all the time, make the
Mhm.
right play seemingly over and over again. And I think it was either Michael Pina or Brian Barrett, somebody from the Ringer, tweeted, it must have been Brian because he tweets out all those good stats, but he was talking about the potential assists in the series as well. And Tatum actually averaged more potential assists than Luka Doncic as well. I don't know if you can look that up. Maybe look at Brian's
Yeah, I think it
profile.
actually was Michael Pina. I think it was, but I'll double check this right now. Go ahead,
Okay.
keep talking.
Um, and that to me, when I saw that come across my timeline, it like checks out. I know like part of that has to do with game plan or whatever, but also I think the way that Tatum performed in the finals with his ability to play point guard. He was the point guard for the Celtics for the majority of the playoffs. And when you think about his growth as a player over the years, he could not have done this 2 years ago. There's no way Jayson Tatum could have manipulated a defense to the point where he is leading the team in assists for the playoffs. Like that's bananas. The fact that he was able to do that again and again and again. Yeah, maybe he could have done it one game here or there, but for the majority of the time, and go. I don't know if you want to go take a look at Tatum's assists from past years as I'm talking here, Will, but it's just like really impressive to think about his maturity as a playmaker because before, as we said, his number one skill was his ability to score the ball, which abandoned him at times this postseason. But all the other parts of his game have gotten to the point where he's a power forward, small forward, power forward, and guard and centers for majority of the playoffs, right? He's getting over 10 rebounds a game in several games these playoffs where you're expecting Jayson Tatum to get a double-double. It's surprising when he doesn't get a double-double in the playoffs because he is such a good defensive rebounder. And then when you add on the playmaking and everything else that he does, the screen setting, the short roll creation, his willingness to be a screener, because a lot of people don't want to set screens, his willingness to be a screener, he has just become a complete player. And I didn't know that we were going to get to this point with Jayson Tatum ever in his career. And the fact that he's here is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think from his career development, I'm with you because this was, like you said, and this was the part that I think made it so difficult for fans and analysts alike to, at times, wrap your head around this version of Jayson Tatum because it was always, oh yeah, Tatum can get buckets. Like Tatum's a bucket getter. That's what he does. He's not when Nikola Jokic scores 20 points, no one blinks an eye because he usually has 12 assists to go with it, right? But with Jayson Tatum, it was, oh, he's in this Durant mold, right? And you had to kind of he's not Durant, and he's become evolved, right? Like it did seem like for a while that was the ultimate future or path, but it's diverged, it's changed. He's molded to the team that he has around him, to his wingman Jaylen Brown, and this has been a really big part of that evolution. But to the couple of things that you pointed out here that you were asking me to look up, so it was Michael Pina that had the potential assist stat. So in the NBA Finals, potential assists: Jayson Tatum 54, Luka 48, assisted points created: Jayson Tatum 88, Luka 69. Assist to turnover ratio 2.25 for JT, Luka 1.22. And Greg, when you talked about Jayson Tatum and what his stats look like in the past, honestly, something I was pretty surprised to find here as I went to go pull up his playoff um, game logs is if you go back to the 22 season, which is obviously the other run the Celtics made to the finals, he averaged basically the same amount of assists and even more games. So he averaged 6.3 this postseason, 6.2 in that run. But that last stat that I just mentioned about the assist to turnover ratio, that's where it's a major
Mm,
difference. In that run, he was 6.2 assists to 4.2 turnovers, where in this run, he's 6.3 assists to just 2.6 turnovers. So nearly cutting it down by 2 turnovers per
there you
game.
go.
And so that's the decision making, that's the processing speed that has changed in him between what we saw in 22 and what we got to see in 24, which was a much more fully formed and fully evolved version of Jayson Tatum.
Yeah. Did he lead the team in assists that postseason or did Smart? Do you know?
I
I
don't
didn't.
have that pulled up here in
Okay.
front of me, but I would imagine it's. I mean, Smart was never more than really like a 5 or 6 assist guy, so I imagine it's pretty close at the very least. But I like that you chose that option. I really do. I think it speaks to the overall evolution of Jayson Tatum. Out of those three, I gave statistics I gave you though. I'll be honest, I would go with option B, and it's being the sixth player to win a title and lead your team in points, rebounds, and assists. And for me, I really love the historical stats that you can find a way to just cut out all the bullshit qualifiers that we always see, where it's like, and he played this and with this and plus that, or this is just really simple. Did you win the championship? Okay, cool. There's like 76 options that we have. There's only 76 teams that have won a title. You have to be on one of those 76 exclusive teams. And then you have to lead your team in statistics that everybody agrees are important to this game, and they have been for years: points, rebounds, assists. And when you look at this list, and it's just these six guys, it's LeBron, it's Larry Bird, it's Hakeem, it's Duncan, it's Jokic. There's no Kobe, there's no MJ, there's no Magic, there's no Steph, there's no Isaiah Thomas. Like, there's so many of these other guys that were on these historic teams that did not end up on this list. And now Jayson Tatum has his place with them. Looks like you had a question.
How many of those guys were as young as Tatum at the time? Any of them? Probably not,
That's
right?
a good question. I mean, LeBron's done it
Maybe
three
LeBron.
times, so
Well,
he must have.
LeBron's first title was when?
First title was older, so that's actually Bird might have been. Yeah, I don't know age wise. That's a great question. I did not look up that part of it as to
Huh.
the age of it, but yeah, he must have. I mean, he's younger than you. Let's just think about this real quick. So Bron first title, he was older than
Mhm.
Tatum, right?
Jokic
So
too.
Jokic as well. Duncan, I'd have to go back and look. I would imagine Duncan probably was about the same age, if not a year younger or so, but probably in that same time frame. And then Hakeem is definitely older, because Hakeem got to the finals early in his career against the Celtics and lost. And then he didn't get back until that mid 90s run when Jordan was out of the league. So for the age that Tatum was at, without having looked this up, it's really between him, Bird, and Duncan for what age that they did that at, which, if you're trying to look that up right now, but it's only just by the process of elimination. It's down to Bird, which was, once again, just narrowing it just even further. That's insane that from an age perspective, he's in a class of it's Bird, Duncan, and Tatum that did it around age 25, 26, depending on which seasons it was with Duncan and Bird.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up which seasons it was. I can't seem to find them. Just doing like a quick Google search, but yeah, that's really impressive. I mean, Tatum, again, the historical context of this team 38 years from now, I think that's what's going to be really fun to look back on, is like, where does Jayson Tatum go from here? Is it a one and done type of thing? Is it Luca? Does Luca end up learning from this finals and rattling off a couple titles? Is this the calm before the Wemby storm, where Wemby just wins like 6 out of the next 10 titles? You know what I mean? Like, and how does
Mm-hmm.
Tatum kind of factor into all of that? Because I do think, and obviously Jalen as well, where are these guys going to live historically? Because it's truly, truly impressive that they did it, man. They
The
freaking
fuck,
did it. Jason Tatum
we
and
did it.
Jaylen Brown
They did
delivered
it.
the title. Homegrown talent. There's nothing better than it, man. Like, I put on TikTok that the clip from the pod the other day where I was talking about we should have traded him, as I'm shit faced. We should have traded him for Kawhi, Paul George, Kevin Durant, all that stuff. And somebody commented, I still would trade him for KD. I was like, you're a freaking idiot. Why would you trade him for KD? Like, even now,
It
like,
makes
why
no
would you trade him
sense.
for KD? He just
Makes
won
no
freaking
sense.
finals MVP. And he's the reason why Luka Doncic was like gassed at the end of every game, because Jalen just completely locked him down for 4 straight quarters, picking him up full court. Like, Kevin Durant ain't doing that, buddy.
Yeah, he ain't doing that at all. Like, and that's another thing that you'll see if you go into the Michael Pina interview. We talk a little bit about how a lot of the focus is on what does this mean for Tatum's legacy. We focus a little bit more on Jalen's legacy,
Mm,
and I think going forward, he's actually the one that has a much more of a reputational change than
yeah,
Jayson Tatum.
I'd
Like,
agree.
one of the things that we talked about is I feel like there's no way, if you take everything that's all the same from this year to next year, he makes all NBA just by the, tie goes to the runner type thing, where it's like, all right, who do I have 3 spots left, and I've got Domantas Sabonis, Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton and Jaylen Brown. I can't leave off the Finals MVP. That becomes the new tiebreaker, and that's his reputational
Dude,
change that goes into
absolutely. I forget who. I don't know if it was like a Ringer top 25, top 50 list or whatever, but I remember tweeting out when the Celtics played the T-Wolves, like Karl Anthony Towns was ranked above Jaylen Brown in some ranking. And I remember tweeting out, like, in what freaking world is Karl Towns better than Jaylen
Yeah.
Brown? Like, that world does not exist.
Yeah.
And now
But,
I
but
think
by the time this comes out, there will be an update to that ranking. I don't know. I'm not going to reveal what it is here. I don't know the exact number either. But I know there's a significant jump for Jaylen Brown coming
based on
in
your
the
conversation
final.
with Pina.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a significant jump coming. I don't have the exact number, but that should be out by the time you're listening to this podcast.
Okay.
So you will see a jump from the
Oh, dude,
around
when that came out
30
and they had
to in the
Karl
top 50.
Towns ahead of Jaylen Brown, I was like, what? What are we doing? What are we doing? Jaylen Brown's so much better than Karl Towns. It's just great to see, like, once you have the championship in your pocket, it's
It
just
changes
like
everything.
changes everything.
Changes everything. So with that, let's go to our third category here. And this is going to be a team wide. So it's a little bit miscellaneous. What's the most impressive? In the first option, we're actually starting with. So option A, most impressive that Jaylen Brown won both the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals MVP. Option B, that Al Horford is now top 50 all time in NBA playoff points, assists, and rebounds. Option C, that Joe Mazzulla is now the youngest non-player head coach, shout out to Bill Russell, to ever win a title at age 35, just about 2 years younger than Pat Riley with the 82 Lakers. Which of those is most impressive, Greg?
I'm gonna go Missoula because we haven't had a real chance.
You're just picking option C. Is this like when you get a Scantron test and you didn't study and you just pick option
I
C
think
for
it
all of
might
them?
be.
Is
Or
that what we're doing here?
Maybe you blame the test maker though. Maybe I blame the test maker in the way that you had framed these questions, because I do think partially I want to talk about Missoula, so that's part of the reason why I'm choosing it. We just talked about Jaylen. You know what I mean? We just talked about that, and then Al Horford. I mean, it is impressive.
From a test maker perspective, my idea was to talk about Jayson Tatum. It turned into Jaylen Brown, so I thought this was an open avenue.
You're talking to me.
True. That's true.
Read the Horford stat again.
So the Al Horford stat is that
he wait. Read all three, but juggle the order.
All right. All right. You got Al Horford is top 50 all time in NBA playoff points, assists, and rebounds. Joe Mazzulla is the youngest non-player head coach to ever win a title, age 35, almost 2 years younger than Pat Riley. And Jaylen Brown won both the Eastern Conference Finals and Finals MVP. Those are your three options.
Okay, we'll go Horford because I don't think I actually listened to what you said at that point. I think I zoned out a little bit. That's really impressive, man.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously the longevity, like up until the title, he was the player that had played the most playoff games without having won a title. So part of it is just like the amount of playoff games that he's played in.
Right.
Obviously he's never been like putting up crazy numbers in the playoffs. He, obviously I think he's what, 5-time All-Star.
Five-time All-Star, yeah, one-time All-NBA. Yeah, but he's steady, right? But to the fact that, I mean, you think all-time, I love Al Horford. When you think of all-time greats, you don't go to Al Horford, right? You don't think that, but you
Al's
think
in the
about
best 400 players of all time, maybe.
Dude, I don't fucking know.
Like I mean, it's a high number. The point is, it's a high number.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a borderline Hall of Fame case. I mean, I forget what podcast I listened to the other day. Like, because it's the basketball Hall of Fame and not just the NBA, there's a good chance he gets in with the 2 titles in Florida, 5 All-Stars, and now a championship. Like, there's a good chance he probably gets in. But to be 50 he's 50th in points, he's 43rd in assists, and he's 18th in rebounds all time. But and you're right, it's the longevity piece. But you got to get there year in and year out. And I think the only year he's ever missed it was that one basically forced vacation he took in Oklahoma City. And that's the only year that he's actually hasn't been in the playoffs in his entire career. So, I mean, basically, it speaks to Wherever Al Horford goes, winning follows. And the reason he was benched in Oklahoma City is because with him and Shea, they were winning too much. And so
Mhm.
basically they sat down both of them so that they wouldn't make a run at I don't know if the play-in was involved back then, but would have been either the play-in or the 8 seed at that time. And so I'm with you. I think it's incredibly impressive for Al Horford to be in that top 50 just because he's not thought of as that guy. But, you know, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. He's in that category, and it's a massive shout out to who Al Horford has been and who he's been to the Celtics organization.
Yeah, looking through his playoff year by year, he had one season, 2011, 2012. I feel like he tore his pec, if I remember that correctly, because he only played 3 games in that playoff. I know
Mhm.
there was one playoff where he was injured, but Al, he's consistently between, aside from his second year where he only averaged 7 points, he's between 12 points, like 11 to 16 points for
Yeah.
like a 10-year stretch in the playoffs. That's that's really impressive stuff out of Al Horford. He's steady Al. He's not average Al. He's steady Al, and he's continuing to just make an impact at this age, this late in his career. It's so impressive, man. And I think, again, 38 years from now, when people are looking at the stats over the years and Al Horford's name comes up in something like this, there's going to be a lot of people. Maybe Al's kid will be in the NBA. Maybe his kid will be in the NBA.
Yeah.
38 years. I don't have a concept for what that is. Well, but I think that, when people see his name, it's going to be really eye-opening for a lot of people, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this Al Horford guy was pretty damn good."
Yeah, and it's still startling to see that for 7 years, 8 years, he didn't shoot any threes, and then it just all of a sudden just takes off. You start seeing him letting it fly from 3. So, him and Brook Lopez, I think, are really the 2 poster boys of guys that could have been lost to time, but made the adjustment and found a whole second career for themselves, and shit, Al's made a lot of money in that second career for himself. But just looking at these other 2 things that we have up here as options here, let's talk about Missoula just for a second. Youngest non-player head coach to ever win a title, age 35. Like, it still blows my mind that he's our age. And Missoula is becoming so fascinating. I'm loving learning more and more about Joe Missoula. I don't know if did you see the clip today about him talking about using the Dark Knight to work with
I,
Jayson
I
Tatum
I saw
on.
the blurb, but I didn't click into anything about it.
Yeah, I've just seen the quick like minute. I think it was on Part of My Take, and it was just a quick minute video where he talked about, which is it's an insane way that his mind works. Where I think everything he thinks there's a way to use this purposefully, no matter what he's doing. Like I don't think he can just sit there and zone out and like eat some popcorn and watch a movie. Like I don't think that's how Joe Mazzulla's mind works. But he talked about how he was using the Dark Knight and him and Tatum were watching a scene. It's the Batman's in the interrogation room and the Joker's laughing and he's like he's like Batman's like he knows Batman's not going to kill him because he's like, you need me, like and he's talking about how the like for all the good needs evil, evil needs good, all this, and how like the critics of Jayson Tatum, and it's like, Missoula, you are a madman, and I love it. I love it. People ask you questions, you answer things that no one asked of you. Like,
Well, I think the funniest thing
what is
about
that joke,
Missoula,
ma'am? This is a Wendy's. Like that's kind of that's kind of like how Joe Missoula holds his press conferences.
yeah, I think one of the most interesting things about Missoula that came out this year was the fact that he says things because he just likes making other people uncomfortable to see how they respond. Like that's just psychotic behavior, man. And
100%. Which is
I
why I know he and I would not vibe because I do the exact opposite. I do everything I can to try to
to
make
make
people
people
feel
feel comfortable.
comfortable, and I probably go
Yeah,
out of my way to do it to the point that like I'm not even being a real human. I'm like I don't even believe in what I'm saying or doing, but like I just don't want this to be awkward, so I'm doing
right.
everything I can. Like we're the exact opposite, which is crazy.
There was a clip that came out that our guy Phil Keefe actually texted to me because Missoula in his post game after the finals was talking with the NBA crew and he was talking about like a camp that he went to at Brandeis University or something like that. I didn't have the whole
Hmm.
context, but he was like, I still remember my rival at the camp, and he
Oh,
name
this is the
dropped.
Red Auerbach thing. Yeah, I have heard
Yeah.
this. Keep going.
Yeah, and he name dropped Winston Tuggle, who went to Milton Academy, and he played with Phil Keefe
Oh, no way.
Yeah, yeah. So Phil texted it to me. He's like, "Did you see the Winston Tuggle shout out?" Because Winston was like, I don't know, I can't remember if he played football as well, but he was built like a football player. He was probably like 6'2", 6'3", big lefty, just like a beast, absolute beast. Like not super talented basketball player, but like a dog, like absolute dog. And like in high school, when you're that big, it's just easy to kind of just like
Right.
bully people around. And just thinking about, because I went to a bunch of Phil's games just to show love. And I remember watching Winston and be like, man, that kid's huge. And to think about Joe Mazzulla just like tussling with them and like knowing how crazy Mazzulla is, that must have gotten wild at that
Yeah.
camp because Mazzulla is built different.
Yeah, that's first of all, that's unbelievable. I had no idea the story was gonna go that route because I saw that clip and everyone on the set started laughing. And I think it was maybe Udonis Haslam was like, "Man, Winston's catching a stray."
Yeah.
But man, shout out to Winston Tuggle for getting in the mix here. And yeah, I would love to be, if you can go back in time and just watch that now, knowing Missoula and especially knowing that that guy Winston played with our boy Phil. I would love to see what that was like. And I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure Missoula loved the fact that he loved bullying, that his style of play was bully ball. That was, you know, that's what Missoula wanted, right? He doesn't want any
Mhm.
finesse player. He wants
No.
the guy that he wants to try to out tough you. Um, so yeah, this has just been an all around what a year for Joe Missoula after, and when we were partially guilty of this, not as guilty as others, but of being super critical of his first year. And I think with time and reflection, it was like, man, that was actually pretty shitty circumstance for him to be in all around. The way he got the job, coaches leaving, and being 34 at the time and trying to figure it out on the
Bro.
fly. Like that's
Okay.
really tough.
So here's like an equivalent I was thinking about the other day, right? Where I used to be a teacher back in the day, right? And my first year as a teacher, I'm just thinking about like I had been a tutor, I had worked with special needs kids, I kind of been behind the scenes. And if they had come to me like the day school was starting and I was expecting to be like a first year teacher, or maybe I was expecting to be a tutor, whatever it is, and they said, you know what? We actually are hiring you to be the principal, run the school.
Right.
It
That's
would have
basically what
been like,
happened.
what? Like, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to do that? Who's gonna help me? Who's gonna mentor me? The janitor. The janitor is gonna be the
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
to mentor you to be the principal. He's
We
been
have we
here a
no,
really
no,
long time.
we
He
have the
knows how the school
tutor
works.
aide that comes in twice a week. That's the guy that's your right-hand man, right?
Yeah.
Because he got left with, like, specialist coaches because Damon Stoudemire left. So he didn't
Yep.
even have, like, another one of the top assistant coaches to work with. Like, yeah, it was a completely unfair position that Missoula got put in, and the way that you saw him authentically be able to kinda embrace everything this year, and honestly, he just coached a hell of a season, coached a hell of a series. Um, it's really, really impressive
He was the
that
best coach
he's
in the
down as the
playoffs.
young guy. Yeah, he's the youngest coach to win a title here. So shout out to Joe Missoula and then Jaylen Brown. Eastern Conference Finals and Finals MVP. We've talked a bunch about him. We're going to talk a lot more about him. So I don't think we need to go too far into that. Obviously, very, very impressive. And we touched on a little bit earlier. I think reputationally, discourse wise, it's going to be a whole new world when it comes to Jaylen
Mhm.
Brown this offseason and going into next year. But all right, let's do the last one I got here for you,
Okay.
Greg. And this one's a 4-pack. I got 4 options for you
Okay.
on this one here. We're going to focus on Brad Stevens. Keep it pretty simple. What's the most impressive? Option A, trading Kemba Walker and a first round pick for Al Horford. Option B, trading Romeo Langford. I knew I was going to do this. I wrote Jay Rich, and I was about to say Jason Richardson, Josh Richardson, a first round pick and a future 2028 pick swap to the Spurs for Derek White. Option C, trading Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis and 2 first round picks. And then option D, trading Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, and 2 firsts for Drew Holiday. What's the most impressive, Greg?
Option two. Option two. Trading.
Trading Romeo Langford, Josh Richardson, a first round pick, and a 2028 swap for Derek White.
Yes. So I think that's the most impressive. One, because he was giving up on like Romeo wasn't good. Let's not fool ourselves and pretend ourselves that Romeo was good, but we were still hoping that he would turn into something. He had a few moments where that year where he had played really good perimeter defense. People were talking about him like he was the best perimeter defender on the Celtics. He was getting much better at like driving closeouts and things like that. Those baseline attacks where he would bully people. Romeo was showing some improvement, right? And there were some people that were hoping that he was going to elevate his play into the playoffs. Richardson was great for us. Richardson was actually a really important piece on that team. I actually really liked his game, and it felt like he had some qualities that could have been useful for the Celtics come playoff time. Like I actually thought if he was still on the team, if like we had given up another piece instead of him, he may have been helpful in the finals. You know, like he's a pretty good wing defender. Maybe could have chased Steph Curry around.
Yeah.
Derek White didn't play great in that finals. I remember I was thinking about this the other day, like how far Derek White's reputation has kind of come, where we all have understood how great Derek White is, but he was bad in the finals, man. He like
Yep.
couldn't get on the court. And I remember thinking after that season, if there was a trade out there where the Celtics could move Derek White to the Phoenix Suns, I think it was the Phoenix Suns, and I think it was Jay Crowder, but it was somebody like that where I remember thinking the other day, I was like, damn, like I really thought at some point that like we should trade Derek White for like Jay Crowder's washed up ass. Like
Yeah.
Derek White has really
That would have
improved
been a
himself as a
disaster.
player. That would have been an absolute disaster. And I think with Derek White to see for Brad Stevens to recognize that he had like an underappreciated asset, an underrated player in San Antonio. He had a great relationship with Pop. Under Pop gave glowing reviews of Derek White and did Brad Stevens a solid, honestly, by trading him. He did not need to trade
Yeah.
Derek White to the Boston Celtics, and we got Derek White. I remember our guys from Crowworthy, shout out to PK, where they wanted to make the Derek White hang it, the Afro and the Banners t-shirt. And we were like, what? Like after one game? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Now, like that would actually be a pretty
Now that
sick
would
shirt,
have been
man.
pretty cool to have. Yeah.
Like
I
shout
kind
out
of
to
wish we had that now.
Crowworthy for that idea, for seeing it before we saw it, man. And it's just really cool that Brad Stevens, one of his first moves was getting Derek White onto this team, and the fact that we're sticking with Derek White and hopefully
Mhm.
giving him an extension for Derek White to be here well into his 30s as he finishes out his 20s.
Yeah, I like that pick. I mean, I think for me, when I look at these options here, option A, which is the Al Horford trade, which Kemba Walker in a first went out, and then option D, in which it was Rob Williams, Brogdon, 2 firsts for Drew Holiday. I'd eliminate those two just because I feel like those are pretty easy decisions to make, right? Those, the Kemba for in a first round. I remember right after that season ended, where this is the year the Celtics are eliminated in the first round. Jayson got hurt. I remember we even said we thought we were kind of joking. But I remember us being like, man, should we just do Kemba and for Al and just call it a
Yeah.
day? Like, let's just
Yeah.
bring Al back. Like, at least that salary that can play. Like, Kemba can't play anymore. And like within a couple of weeks, that was the trade. And we were like, all right, I think everyone saw that. Everyone was kind of cool with it and on board. So that was pretty perfect. And then like the Rob Williams, Brogdon, and the 2 firsts for Holiday, you could make an argument that isn't quite as now looking at it. It's definitely easy, but it's 2 for 1, and it's some future picks, and Holiday's he's not old, but he's not young either. You know what I mean? So you
It's
are
two injury prone
sacrificing.
guys.
Right. And so that's why it's when I say sacrificing depth, there's air quotes there because who knows what's going to happen with Brogdon and Williams. Brogdon, we got super lucky that he was healthy for just about the entire year until Game 7 of the finals of the Eastern Conference Finals, and then when we really needed him, he was hurt. But and Rob, we know in and out, and obviously sad that he missed last season. Hopefully he comes back strong this year. But I think that's a pretty easy call when you really think about it, especially the reputation Drew Holiday has around the league. I think it falls in your lap. You just, you set yourself up for that opportunity and you go ahead and
Every
make it.
single GM in the league would have done that trade.
100%, 100%. And so then I think that leaves the trade that you outlined and then the Marcus Smart trade for Kristaps and 2 first-round picks. I think this would be my answer. Number one, because it's an insane return for Marcus Smart. Like, we love Marcus. Marcus was great. But to get Kristaps and you see the difference he's made with raising the ceiling, and you got 2 first-round picks, like that's mind-blowing value for that. But you're also giving up a very known quantity for a guy that his reputation was in the gutter before he went to Washington. He revived, his on court value anyways, of like, hey, if this guy's available, he's a real asset, but the if he's available part is still going to be there. And so it is a difficult decision to make. And I know I sent this to you. Did you listen to the mismatch a couple days ago where Kevin O'Connor talked about what the original plan was?
Oh, the Tyus Jones thing?
Yeah, so where it was
Yeah.
originally the KP Brogdon trade, if that goes down within a couple days, the framework, and this is why they could pivot to the trade that actually happened, is that the framework was already there for basically Marcus for Tyus, which by the way, I predicted on a Bleacher Report stream earlier in that offseason. But Marcus for Tyus, and I don't know if it was like 2 or 3 picks or whatever it would have been. And I thought that was pretty crazy to hear. Like that's the alternate reality here, is that we end up with Tyus Jones and Derek White as our backcourt, which I like Tyus Jones. That's no fucking Drew Holiday, right?
Yeah.
Like
Not even
that's
close.
no Drew Holiday. That's a completely different
Well, I remember
world
when Tyus
that we're
Jones got
looking at.
rerouted to Washington, I was like, why didn't we just get Tyus Jones?
Yeah. And salaries, I guess, just didn't line up to make that work or whatever. But it's fascinating to think about how that all played out. And so then you end up with this Marcus Smart for KP and 2 first-round picks. And that's a fucking hell of a move. That's a gamble to hell, and that's before you knew you were going to get Drew. So for me, I think just from the unknowns and the value, and there's a couple different ways that you can look at that trade. I think for me, that's the most impressive Brad Stevens trade because there's so much risk involved, but at the same time, you're hedging your bet that you're getting 2 first-round picks with this as well. And then eventually one of those picks helps you land Drew Holiday. So you still have all your other internal first-round picks. And that's where Celtics are now, even though they're going to be paying a pretty hefty luxury tax, they're still set up pretty well roster and financial wise to make moves down the line over the next couple of years. So I think that trade right there, getting Marcus Smart at his absolute peak value and getting picks in return and being able to use that to then eventually land Drew Holiday, I would say that's most impressive. But Derek White is right there because we didn't know Derek White was going to turn into what he's become. So it's right there between those two moves, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. The smart trade is crazy. There's still a part of me that like is interested to see what happens with the Celtics team that doesn't make the Drew trade, right? If Drew just like
Yeah.
it stays in Portland the whole time or something, and it's Brogdon, Derek White, the Jays, Al Horford, Porzingis, and Rob
In
Williams.
theory, that's still a really good team,
It's a
right? Like
good team, dude.
if Brogdon and Rob stay healthy, that's like you talk about the size of that team. Think about the team we have now, but we're plugging in, Rob Williams for the
Can
Luke
you
Cornett
imagine the
spot.
rim protection with Porzingis and Rob on the court at the same time?
That's what I'm saying. You would never have one of them probably not on the court at some point in the game, and then you would have them both together at some point. Like that's pretty insane to think about. And then Brogdon gives you. I mean, Brogdon was 6th man of the year last year. Like, say what you will, like Brogdon's damn good. Brogdon's he's not Drew Holiday, but he's just in that he's in that Marcus Smart category of player, right? So
Mhm.
just below the Drew Holiday category. So you're right. Like that is kind of a fascinating team to think about what that looks like if they never make that Holiday trade. I'm glad I don't have to see it, but it is a curious, maybe a 2K simulation to play out someday.
I would really like to see Rob back in Boston at some point.
I just want to see him healthy, man. I hope Rob gets healthy,
Yeah.
man. He was so much fun to watch. So yeah, I just shout out to our guy, Rob. Rob, we'll never forget you, man. Hopefully you are back on the court in the next year. But Jack, this is fun, man. I had fun doing
It's
this.
good.
This is the type of
Off-season
content that
content,
we're
baby.
gonna get to do. Isn't it nice that this is the type of content that we're gonna be able to produce all summer instead of I don't know, man. We were so close. What do we do?
Well, listen, man,
Let's
I
do
actually think our strength as podcasters is not the game recaps and all that. Like
no, not at
this
all.
is our wheelhouse where it's like
100%.
basketball, comedy is basketball, basketball is comedy. That's where we thrive. Very excited for the off-season content here. Excited to give weekly updates about how fatherhood is going. I was
Right.
going to try and start my my dad podcast. It didn't work out. So maybe that can just be a segment on the pod now where we just
Yeah.
we
We'll
talk
build it in.
about my experience as a young dad.
Yeah, it's kind of like what does Simmons and cousin Sal
Parent
do?
corner. It won't be
Parent
parent corner.
corner.
It
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
be
We'll,
parent
we'll, we'll come up. We'll come up with a different gimmick for it, and we'll have a different name for it, and yeah. But we'll find a way to work that in as the summer progresses. But before we sign off, Greg, once again, tell people about the new song dropping with Black Sheep Optimists, and then tell them what they can do to help that song grow. Because I know the way it works with playlists, yada yada. There's a very specific things that they can do to
Yeah.
help that blow up.
So the song is called "Feels Like Summer." It's just a summer song, just like good vibes.
If you stick around to the
Really,
end of the YouTube, you hear it every time. So I
yeah.
literally walk out of every recording singing it.
Yes, it's a good track. It's featuring Kaylin Carr, who is Daryl, my buddy Daryl from my band, his fiance. She's a great singer, so she's got a little tagline in there. My producer Dave goes absolutely ham. David Price goes ham on the production. He does all the production on the song except for the horns. We outsource the horns production. He mixes everything. I do some of the rapping on it. Daryl's doing some singing. It's just a fun track, very much inspired by Anderson .Paak, one of my favorite artists. Definitely tried to imbue a little bit more of that like Malibu vibe in there. So it's a good time. And then in terms of like helping us grow the song, just add it to your summer playlist, I think is the easiest way to do it. One thing that I know we're trying to figure out is a way to like get into the TikTok market. So you know how they have all those videos where people are like getting ready for things, and then there's like they like hit the camera and then they're in a different outfit or something
Yeah.
like that. So what I envision for it is when there's that like epic breakdown in the middle of the song, where it like takes you into a different part of the universe. I think it's around like 2 minutes. Right before the drop back into the funky instrumental jam, what I envision is like couples getting ready together. So they're kind of like in normal clothes or bathrobes or whatever, and they're kind of looking at each other, walking at the camera, and then when the drop happens, they do that to the camera, and then they're in like fresh summer outfits. So that's kind of like the viral video idea that I have. I don't know how to get people to do it. So
Yeah, I don't understand how any of this works. You were saying this all to me. I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know like how those become things. Like I
yeah.
have
So
literally no clue.
if you are on TikTok and do that, then please do something like
Hey,
that.
if you
I
know
don't
how to
know,
make
man.
those things become things, please let us know. Hit us up for both Black Sheep and the podcast. We would appreciate any
Yeah.
type of love. So make sure you guys are adding the song to your summer playlist. And right now, we're gonna play it for you here as part of the outro. And we'll be back. I'm gonna head to we're recording this where the parade's already happened, but maybe I'll have some stories from the parade if my flight doesn't get delayed. We'll see how it works out. But we will check in with you guys later this week and have some more fun off-season podcast content. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.
It feels like summer, baby. Oh mama, feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. So fly, the sky will kiss you. Lips so smooth, I miss your issues. Oh mama, feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. Oh my, I'm slipping into white lies and time to miss you. Now you're 3 shots deep that you chase with the Croy. You're looking at me while you're making that noise. I've been trying to stay clean, but you gave me no choice. You're making such a scene that I had to come